Crimson Guard Cadet Deming
will handle this interrogation.
Just you and I.
What did Milady say? Tell me!
Coming up on Crossfire Collectibles, the G.I. Joe Crimson Guard Interrogator Cadet Deming custom build tutorial and review. Stick around. What's up and welcome to Crossfire Collectibles. Today's video, we're going to be doing a custom build, tutorial, and review of the G.I. Joe character, Cadet Deming. So Cadet Deming was a Crimson Guard interrogator who first made her appearance on December 13th of 1985 in the G.I. Joe Real American Hero cartoon episodes, There's No Place Like Springfield Parts 1 and 2. Cadet Deming was given an order to interrogate Shipwreck under any means necessary to try and retrieve a password which would unlock the secret ingredient to a formula that was able to turn water into a bomb. Little did Cobra know that Shipwreck was only implanted with the recipe for the formula, and it could not be unlocked without that password. During the process, they tried to brainwash Shipwreck, going as far as using synthoids to stand in as anybody he knew, including a new family which he had no recollection of or his past memories. That plan would later backfire as Cadet Deming was unable to retrieve the password from Shipwreck. Dr. Mulaney had only given the password to Lady J, who unfortunately in their brainwashing method had died on the USS Flag. Considered one of the more darker and psychologically horrified episodes, There's No Place Like Springfield holds a grasp on the terror that Cobra is willing to conflict to gather what they need. Parts 1 and 2 of There's No Place Like Springfield were the only appearances that Cadet Deming ever made in any G.I. Joe content. She appeared both as a nurse and as the blue uniformed Crimson Guard interrogator. Probably more famously known for her
Tell me!
But a figure I've always wanted. Rumors went around for a while they were actually going to do a classified version, which obviously was bogus. And there's been plenty of people who have made customs in the past, so now's my shot at it. In front of you is the parts I'm going to use. I did have a prior torso I was using, but I wanted to tweak it some, and during that process I destroyed it. So I had to search for another one, and luckily I found the one that's right here that we're going to explain. So as for our parts, we'll start here. Our upper legs are from a G.I. Joe Retaliation Lady J version 9. The lower legs and feet, as well as the upper and lower arms, are from a Rise of Cobra Agent Helix version 1. The lower arms here, which we're only going to use these gauntlets for, we're going to cut the hands off. These are from a Cobra Commander version 24 from the 25th anniversary. The shoulder lapels and cord are from a Crimson Guard version 9. The head and goggles are from AVAX Lab. We have the belt and hands, which are from Marauder Gunrunners. And we have this upper and lower torso of a female Crimson Guard from Vortius Custom Accessories. So, there we have our parts. I also have a piece, well, two pieces of a belt here that I was thinking about making my own belt. Just in case this one is a little too bulky, I'll make a smaller version with this stuff, but we'll decide on that later. What we're going to do is cut the hands off of these forearms and plug in those hands, paint them up, and they should be our black long gloves. And we'll come to combine it all together, paint it up, make it look good, and hopefully as we want. And now for our markers that we'll be using. So we have a choice of two different blues here. We're going to go with whichever one looks close enough. You know, once it's on the figure and we decide, yeah, that looks better. So here's our darker blue. This is a GM 170. And a lighter blue, which is a GM 168. Our red, we have a Gundam marker GM 35. And we also have a red Sharpie, simply because it's the only fine point I have. And maybe that can get into some of the small areas, like the, I guess the seam along the chest covering. We have a Real Touch yellow for the hair. We have an acrylic gold, and this will be for the pins and buttons. We have a Real Touch pink for the lips. A Gundam black fine point for the pupils and eyelashes. And a white highlight marker for the whites of the eyes. So there's our markers and our parts, as well as a little backstory. So now we'll go ahead and start with the build. But first, please subscribe to the channel. Alright, so I'm gonna get everything out of here. Off camera, I did a few things. Alright, so I tested the blues, and I'm deciding to go with the GM168. You can see on the lower forearms here, the blue looks pretty good. It matches the cartoon look. I went ahead and drew 2 red lines around the forearm as well to where the red lines are going to go on the uniform jacket. So we got those ready. I went ahead and cut out a Cobra decal for the chest for once it's finished. There's that. I went ahead and cut the inner pegs off the inside of the little lapel pieces. So you got 1 and 2. So they're nice and flat. And I also assembled the hands. So I went ahead and cut those hands off of the gauntlets, trimmed them down a bit, and then poked the hands into them. So now we have some articulated wrists, which is great. And finally, I went ahead and ditched the larger belt and went ahead and made a smaller version that fits more to a female figure. So that works. Went ahead and put a little Cobra on the buckle instead of the triangle that she has. And we got 2 red lines on each side. So that'll work for me for this. And now with that, I'm gonna go ahead and bring our plate in. So we don't need that belt anymore. We got the head and the goggles. The goggles are gonna stay black. So that's good for those. And now I think we need to paint the upper thighs and the torso. We need to do a lot of blue, put it that way. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm going to take the legs apart and then we'll start the painting. Okay, so there is our left thighs. Now we're gonna go ahead and do the right. So we have our thighs done. And now we're gonna go ahead and move on to the lower portions of the legs and do everything from just about the top of that boot up. All right, the first pass went pretty good. Now we're gonna go ahead and do the other leg. All right, there we go. Both lower legs done. Now we're gonna sit those back while they dry and move on to the lower torso. So we just have the front and back to do, and it shouldn't be too much. We might have to do a second pass to come back and fill in some parts, but it shouldn't be a problem. All right, so there's the front, and we're running out of finger room, so we're gonna set that down, let that dry. Before we move on to the back, we're gonna go ahead and finish up these legs real quick too. So we have the bottom of the torso finished. Well, not finished, but we have a first coat on it. We got the legs done, so they're out of the way. We'll just move those off to the side. We need to let those 2 pieces dry before we go back and they're able to touch the other pieces to get the lower areas. But now I think we can go ahead and move on to the upper torso and arms. So we will start with the front. All right, there's our front, and we're gonna go ahead and stop at that point. I wanna wait for this to dry so I can spin it around and carefully get in there on them inner collars and back around on the back of the neck. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and move on, and we're gonna start with the left arm before we move to the back and the other arm. I just wanna keep them separated so I know what I'm doing. We did the forearm of the left arm, and you notice, if you can see it, how I left a bit of the red lines. That's so I know where they are so I can go back around them. We're just going to let that dry, and then we'll extend the arm and go back in and do the rest. We're going to go ahead and move on to the right arm now. So we'll set the right arm down to dry, and now we're going to move on and get as most of the back upper torso done that we can. All right, there's the back, and then we're going to try to set this down to dry. There we go. So now we'll give this a break, come back when some of the stuff is more dry, and finish them up. While we give the rest of that blue a little more time to dry, we're going to go ahead and move into the gloves. And we're going to get the back of these done in black, so that way we can go ahead and apply them when we're ready. So that way we don't overlap any paint and have to go back in and do touch-ups. And the same for the other. There we go. So we got our black on the insides of the hands. So when we go back to finish painting the gloves, we can just glue them right onto our forearms, and that way we can simply color in the hands. Okay, I think we've given our torso and arms enough time to dry. So we're gonna go ahead and get our blue back out and go back in and finish these up. Okay, we put the blue on the arms. We're gonna have to go back in and get them joints. Now we're gonna move on and finish this torso up. Okay, our blues are down for the most part. All that's left is a few touch-ups, and like we got to still getting the joints of those arms. And I want to show you guys what I do to get that edge around the collar using the highlight marker. So that way we do that, and we can go over with the red so it really shows and it pops. I did the same with the belt here. You can see that red pretty good. And we'll go ahead and show that off once we finish these up. But we're going to go ahead and sit this back and let it dry again. We got to get those arms done. And then we'll go back in and finish that upper torso. Then we'll go in and do the gloves, and we'll move on to the head. Alright, so the parts are still a little damp, so we're going to go ahead and just move on and go ahead and start the head. So for this, we're going to go ahead and bring out our white highlight marker, and we'll start with the whites of the eyes. Now while we let that white sit in, we'll go ahead and bring out our Real Touch Pink and go ahead and add our lip color. Got some pink for the lips. We're gonna let them eyes dry a bit more before we go in and touch them up and shape them. But maybe we can go ahead and start putting the hairline on. So we'll grab our Real Touch Yellow, and I'll start with that. Alright, I think that'll do. Now for a tricky part, we're going to go ahead and make her eyes blue. So we're going to bring in this blue acrylic and put a very, 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 very light drop of blue right in the center to give some eye color. There we go. So we'll put our black pupils right into the center of those, but we'll let them dry a bit first. And now we're going to bring out the fine point black so we can get those eyelashes. And there we go. That blue might just about be dry. Very, very small drop, so it only takes a second. And the tiniest speck of black in the center. I think that'll do it for our eyes. As for our eyebrows, I'm undecided, but likely we'll just go back to the Real Touch Yellow and see what we can do about some very small lines. Alright, there we go. So now we'll set this back and let that dry a bit, so that way we don't go in and screw up the hairline or the eyes. So while we have that off to the side, we're going to go ahead in and, I guess, just finish up our arms here. I think they should be good. All right. All right, arms down. Still a bit damp in some spots, but big deal. All right, now the fun part. I need to try to get in on that collar without touching that neck. Oh, this is gonna be difficult. All right, so we just had to touch that up a bit, but the paper trick kind of worked. I did go over it a little bit, but we're gonna go ahead and redo that on this side to see if we can get in there and just get that done. We'll just have to touch it up like the other side. All right, so with the paper trick, I think it's probably as close as we're gonna get it, but I'm pretty happy with it. I think that's about as comfortable as I'm gonna get with that neck. So that's down, out the way, and I think we're good to go ahead and let that dry again. So we'll go ahead and take another break and we'll be back. All right, so now that we've given this stuff some time to dry, we're gonna come in and do this outline. So we got our white highlight pen, and I'm gonna start with the upper torso. So what we're gonna do is take our white pen and simply go around the edges, you know, around the neck, around this front, I guess, uniform piece, on the buttons, all the good stuff, because that's the parts that are going to be red. We're going to use our red Sharpie to go on after it so it really pops. So this will take a minute, got to be very careful, but this is how you do it. We're going to go around the collar, and we're going to do the buttons. We're going to do the collar last because that's the more tricky part. We're going to go ahead in and do them buttons. There's a few touch-up spots, but it's not bad. It's the white highlight marker, and it comes off, you know, pretty quick and easy. Okay, so we have our white on. Now we're going to sit that back and let it dry for a few. And then we're going to move down to the lower torso, do the same, outline and buttons. All right, and the bottom part of the torso is on. We also want to get the arms, and we're going to go around where the red lines already were and just go back over them. Not the greatest, but hey, it'll do for now. Set that down and we'll move on to the next. You can see kind of close, the red is already kind of bleeding into the white, which is okay, because we're actually going to go back over that with the red, and it should look pretty nice. So now, while we're going to let those whites dry for a moment, we're going to go ahead and bring in our black pour marker, and we're going to do these gloves real quick. So we're going to start with the right hand. All right, we have one coat down. Probably have to go back over, especially the top of the hand, that the black didn't set in too well because that blue showing through. But we're going to go ahead and do the left hand now. All right, now the same for the left. Set it back, let it dry a minute. We'll go back over it. Now I think we should be good to go on the upper torso, just to straighten out some of these lines up at the top. So we're just going to scrape off a little white. Now before we get to the neck, I'm going to go ahead and add some of this red, just so you guys can see what it looks like. And it should make this white really pop. We may have to let that white dry for a little bit longer because it's still a bit damp. So we'll just set that back, give it a few more minutes, and then we'll come back to it. So while we're going to go ahead and wait on those, we're going to go ahead and color our hair in. That way it'll give it some more time to dry. All right, there we go. I think we got our Cadet Deming head done. So we'll sit that back again and let that dry. Now hopefully the white on this upper torso is finished. So let's try again with the red. Okay, so we got 2 lines down. You guys can't tell, but I sped this up, so it's actually a very lengthy process. So just take your time at it, go in there very nice and slow, get it done, and it'll turn out okay. So we're gonna sit that down for a bit. I'm gonna do some of this off camera so I can get in a little bit closer, but just follow those processes and you'll be totally fine. So we'll be back with the outlines painted. All right, so we did all that off camera, and there you go. It looks pretty good. I'm happy with it. Now, we're gonna go ahead and glue the hands onto the forearms. So we need to get out a little bit of Gorilla Glue. Get that coming out. Now, if you noticed Cadet Deming's arm, her left arm in the cartoon has, I guess, a triangle with a cobra in it. But the right arm has this little like bicep patch. We're actually going to leave that and not put the cobra symbol and upside down triangle or whatever on her left arm. So for this figure, it's kind of reversed, but we have this. And I don't have a cobra, I guess, sigil that small to put on there. But we're going to go ahead and put these arms on. We're just going to take some glue, put it right around the bottom like this. I mean, a nice amount, not too much, but not too little. And then we're going to take our hand and just slide it into place. Hold it and let it dry. Alright, that should do it for the first arm, and we'll just repeat that with the second. There's that one. We're going to sit those back, let them settle in for a minute. And now we need to start assembling the torso, so that way we can slide on the belt and start putting the figure together. So now we got our parts all set up and ready to kind of assemble, I guess you could say. So we first need to put our, I guess our tri-joint in. So we want to get a little blob of glue right there, just to hold it in place when we set it on. So bring that in and put it right there. And then our belt is going to go on before we put on the top of the torso. But we're going to go ahead and pop some glue onto the front just so it's ready. Alright, now that we have the lower torso together and the belt on, we can go ahead and bring in the arms to get ready for the top. These in place. Same thing, put some glue all around these sockets. And we have our torso assembled. Now, we'll get the glue out of here and we'll go ahead and put the legs on. Legs are on, so we have a little bit of a seam gap, but that's okay. We'll go back over and touch it up once she's all together. And now we're not out of the park just yet. We got to put on the rope and the rank lapels. So we'll see how it's going to sit so far. And I think I'm going to leave the gold too. I'm pretty fond of it. Okay, so what we need to do is get our glue once more. Very small dab right onto the back, just enough to hold it in place on the shoulder collar. All right, we got one. Now we could glue the rope, you know, to the torso on the inside, and I probably will do that. I want to let this top dry in first, but we got to put the second one on. So the same thing, a little dab of glue, and we'll just pop that right on. Okay, now that we have those on, let's go ahead and add that small dab of glue on the inside of the inner arm here, and we'll make that rope stick. Alright, that should do it. Now, almost finished. We can go ahead and get our plate out of here. Now, we're not out of the park just yet. We have to add our Cobra decal. So we get our tweezers, and we'll drop this in the water real quick. Alright, so we need to let the decal dry, and we are almost finished. So now we can bring in our head, take the Q-tip off, and pop our head on. We got to get our goggles. And there we have it. There is our custom G.I. Joe Cadet Deming. So now we'll go ahead and do some touch-ups off camera, kind of cover them seams up, and finally we'll come back and throw up onto the turntable and give you our final thoughts.
G.I. Joe will return after these messages.
Be sure to check out our previous videos. A link will always be pinned in the comments.
Now back to G.I. Joe.
All right, so here she is, the G.I. Joe Crimson Guard Interrogator, Cadet Deming. This came out really good. I'm really happy with it. There's not too many flaws I can personally point out that kind of, get to me, even, being the one that was specific on every little bit of detail, as you're building this. I think the one thing that stands out is probably the wrist. Due to that wrist articulation, with that hinge in there, it makes the hands look like they're a little too long. But it's something I can live with. Yeah, the custom touches, up on the rank lapels. There's a few things. The belt, two little, I guess, gold pins on the insides of the collar. They're a little more different than, what the cartoon version looked like. But I'm happy with it. She looks good. It really, just brings out the classic character. I mean, if any, real Joe fan were to look at it and be like, oh, you got a Cadet Deming. Some people are like, who the hell's that? But I'm happy with it. I think she turned out great, and it's going to make a nice addition to the collection. She took quite a few hours to do, so throughout the week I worked on her, and that's why she's going up on a Saturday, because, it came out a little later than expected, but sooner than expected as well. So I didn't expect to work on it a whole week, in some free time, but I did, and it's finished, and here we go. So I hope you guys enjoy this. Feel free to use the recipe and create your own, as well as leave a link, in the comments with your work. I'd love to see it. The list of things that we have planned to do is getting smaller, but I'm still continuously adding new stuff. So I have probably the next 2 months already planned out, and I have some real cool ones coming along, so be sure to stick around and check those out. But until the next one, I hope you guys enjoyed what you saw. If you did, please, like always, leave that giant thumbs up, subscribe, tickle that bell so you're notified when we post future videos. Be sure to follow us on social media, and we will see you in the next one.